Upon finding Moagim's force, the band of heroes fought like wolves, cutting their way to the form of Moagim. There, Connacht and the Faceless Terror squared off as the battle raged around them. After a sword battle the likes of which had never been seen, Moagim clutched his final wound and dropped into the snow and mud. The undead in his army began to shiver, collapsing into piles as the magic that held them together was no more. The war had been won, but at a terrible price. First, the smiths of Muirthemne and the people of the Downs. Then the ogre and the 12 duns had perished. Even the emperor himself had given his life to this conflict. But now, finally, the terror of Moagim's war was over. With Moagim's blood still wet on his sword, Connacht led his battered force back down the Norn Pass.
Majoran, so now you make your move.
You're not quite as stupid as I thought.
I knew that you were the traitor to the Empire. That you are responsible for bringing Moagim to flesh again.
Clever. You have it all figured out, do you?
No. I did not realize that Mordred was your puppet as well.
Mordred! Of all the scheming!
You don't understand. I never meant to...
You would do anything for the powers I have taught you. Keeping your eye on this barbarian was a simple task.
You are the one responsible for the death of the Emperor!
Quite true. And now, the Empire of the Cath Bruig is rightfully mine. You can join me if you like. I need a warrior of your status and skill to lead my armies.
All you will get from me is the edge of my axe, traitor.
Faugh! Perhaps you are the ignorant savage I thought you were.
Enough talk, murderer.
Kill them!
Well, Majoran and Mordred have proven themselves as traitors. They've both betrayed us, and can you believe... Well, actually I can totally believe Majoran betrayed us. He was a dick right from the beginning. But Mordred? Man, I thought he was our friend. That guy's just been flat out... deceiving us. Okay, that should have been obvious too. Yes, Mordred is the deceiver, and this is the big deceiving thing he's done. Oh boy, do I have a lot to talk about Majoran and Mordred, to the point that I really won't have time to be talking about what I'm doing as I'm playing. We're going to be under... I can just mention this. We're going to be under attack by light forces, essentially, warriors and archers. The strategy is kind of the same against them as they are for Thrall and Solus. Enemy warlocks, however, are going to be a huge problem. You want to deal with them with archers and from as long a range as possible, possibly using terrain to your advantage. Kind of like that. Now I'm going to start explaining Mordred and his relationship with the story, just because his motivations are a lot simpler than Majoran's. Basically, Mordred just wanted to be a powerful dream user. It was... Oh, hey. Sometimes you can use warlocks to your own advantage with friendly fire. But basically, Mordred just wanted to be a powerful dream user, and it was foreshadowed that he was having a lot more power, or he had a lot more power than he should have, just from the teachings of the Avatara. Well, it's simple now. We know that he had the power because he was apprenticing with Majoran. And that's kind of all there is to say about him. No, Majoran is a much more complicated story, but before I get to him, there's one thing I kind of need to point out right now. In the very, very first video of this LP, the introduction, I mentioned there's a couple things that Connacht would be doing throughout the LP. I said that Connacht would destroy the Macridia, he'd destroy the Trow Empire, he'd kill the Leveler, and in the process discover the identity of the Head. We haven't really done that yet, have we? And this is the last video. So let me just break this down. Every single named character in this game, at this point we know their fate. We know that they're either dead right now, or they become Fallen Lords later on. Everyone except Majoran. So I hope it doesn't come as a surprise to everyone to know that Majoran is the Head. Now we'll just back this up, we'll see if this makes sense. What we know about the Head is that, well, it's just a living head. It's obviously a very powerful being, Okay, check mark for Majoran. The head in Myth 1 kind of only cared about itself. It had no love for the light forces and hated the Fallen Lords as well. That's a check for Majoran here. He's in it for himself. The head claimed that he was decapitated by Balor. Well, Connacht is Balor, so depending on the outcomes of this level, that could also be true. The one last thing we know about the head is that it was the first thing that ever mentioned the Total Codex. It brought the Total Codex into the canon of myth. That's going to play an important part in the next point. At the beginning of this mission, when Connacht and Majoran are having their dialogue, there's a line in the script that Connacht doesn't say. I should also mention this. Connacht's the only unit I have that can absorb a Warlock Fireball. You don't want to be doing that too much because we only have 9 healing herbs. But at the very beginning of this mission, Connacht and Majoran are talking, and there's a line that Connacht is supposed to say, but it's cut out. I don't know why. It's not like the information that he said is removed from elsewhere in the game. It's mentioned elsewhere, but it's kind of like this information is swept under the rug. And here it is. Connacht says to Majoran, "It is you who are the leveler, Majoran, not your pawn, Moagim." And I think that's kinda huge. Knowing that Majoran has been the leveler this entire time kind of explains a whole lot of what's been going on behind the scenes that you might not, you might think might be a plot hole or what's been going on. Now I gotta say this, we don't know what the leveler is. Is it some, like, spiritual force that captures people, or is it its own being, or is it just a title that someone gives themselves? We don't know, and I kind of like it that way. But we know that Majoran is now the leveler, and he's probably been since before the start of the game. He seemed to be taking kind of a sneaky route into power. Instead of making direct grabs for power, he's been working behind the scenes as a high advisor to the Emperor, and eventually taking control, as was most obviously foreshadowed in some of the previous missions. Now, what he's been doing, though, this whole time, makes a lot of sense if you assume this. We're getting into fan theory territory here, but I don't think I'm making any crazy assumptions, so follow with me. Majoran, or the head, I mean, knows about the Total Codex. I think it's safe to assume that Majoran, in his position, has also read the Total Codex. He knew, right from the beginning of this game, that a hero is going to come from the east that's going to destroy the Mercuridia and do all these great things, and end up with killing the leveler. Okay, you're the leveler. How do you stop this? Well, first you need to figure out who this hero is. The first time we met Majoran at the end of the cutscene to Journey to Lancrefin, he seems very wary of Connacht, almost afraid. He's probably thinking, oh great, this is some guy who's he has this great strategy against the Mercuridia. I wonder if he's the guy that's gonna become this great hero. And eventually figures out that, yeah, this is the guy. So how do you stop him? Well, you could hope that the Total Codex is just flat out wrong and send Connacht on a fool's errand, ending up in a trap, kind of like in Flight from the Dark, hoping to kill Connacht. Or maybe during one of Connacht's crazy schemes, like going to Mirgard or attacking the Trow twice. Use your influence with the Emperor to only send a small company of troops along with him, hoping that they all die. Now, of course, Majoran's a little bit smarter than that. I think he needed a plan in case the oh crap,
Casualties.
Oh, Jesus, You know what, I think that's gonna be okay. I actually don't need my archers from here on out. But yeah, Majoran needs a plan in case the Total Codex can't be wrong. Let's say the future can't be changed. Can it be slightly incorrect? The Total Codex doesn't have all the events of the world in detail written in it. After Fall of the Crown, Connacht said that the Emperor's death, this was not written of. What if the Total Codex has the major events written down, but not the details? Kind of like a CNN headline ticker. Can you fudge the minor details of an event so as to trick the Total Codex into being technically right, but completely miss the big picture? Majoran would know that he needs a plan. Being the leveler himself, well, he's throwing these fire waves, which are going to be annoying. This is going to take a long time for me to set up. Give me time to talk about this more. But Majar knows that he's the leveler. He obviously doesn't want to get killed, like the Codex says. But what if everyone thought that some other guy was the leveler? And who better than the previous incarnation of the leveler? So Majar resurrected Moagim, just kind of to use him as a fall guy. Let Connacht become this great hero and have him kill the leveler, in air quotes, exactly as written in the Codex. Then do what Majarn's doing now, betray and kill Connacht. Majarn would then head back to Landkerfin and say something like, Connacht is the greatest hero of this age. He has killed the leveler Moagim, but he suffered a fatal wound in the fight. Let us all remember him for all time. Oh, and by the way, I'm your new emperor now. We're doing things my way. Boom. Majarn wins, and the total codex is still technically correct. Now, is this exactly what the developers were going for? Maybe. It certainly fits with everything we know about the game, and I think it's a really cool twist. I'm sure everyone saw or knew that something was up with Majarn, but having him be the leveler, I doubt anyone saw that coming. As for actually killing Majarn now at this point, we have to dodge all of these fire waves. Majarn will kind of fire them at various locations, but it'll be the same place every time. There's going to be safe places to stand. What I need to do is have a bunch of units and get close on 3 different locations. I moved that first Berserk up just so I could see which way Majarn was aiming so that I can time my runs a little better. Majarn will fire these fire waves. Like when he sees a guy in a place where he'll hit, he'll fire that way. And it's very hard to dodge. We'll just kill these guys. It's also why I removed the text bar. I need to see when these fire waves are coming, because they're fast. And you're going to lose some Berserks if you're not quite paying attention. So another thing I really like about this twist is that Majarn, they keep him as kind of a minor character through the whole game, but they just keep bringing him up. They keep mentioning him just here and there, and they show how he slowly is gaining his power over the Emperor, his influence over him. It's I don't know, I really like that twist. It's a cool way to have bring something new into myth canon, even though it's mentioned that everyone thinks that Moagim Reborn is the leveler. I think that's mentioned in the end of Myth 1 or Myth 2 somewhere. But it's a cool twist kind of out of nowhere. But back to this level. Majarn has these groups of warriors around him, and we're gonna need to take care of those before we attack Majarn himself. So, I need to wait for him to fire once, and then go. Even though I just finished saying how Majarn planned all this and how smart he is, okay, that's a trade I'll make. And on the other side, it's a little more difficult on this side because, I don't know, the Majarn seems to fire at you a lot sooner. Just gonna time this right. You might look like you failed at this point. You know, you only get a couple, but then Majarn fires a backup shot for some reason. If you're lucky, you'll get everything. A lot of times you'll leave only a couple units alive back there. But now that everything's dead, we can probably do this. Got people on the left, the middle, and the right. And if we all charge in at once, one of them is going to get close. We just need for Majarn to fire at the right spot so no one dies on the... There we go. So that no one dies on the run-up. These fire waves are a little weird in that they don't become damaging until you get... Okay, well...
Casualty.
You might be able to run through a fire if they get close. Yes, just like that. It takes a while before those fire waves become damaging. But now that we've got him on the run, we have him. I don't know why that fire wave just froze there, but whatever. Going with it. Once you get up close and you stop Majarn from using his pattern, you have to keep on him. Even if there are other warriors still alive attacking you, You cannot let Majarin get any distance between you and your berserks, otherwise he's going to turn around and fire another wave at you. And this one will be completely unpredictable. You won't know which way it's going. And that'll usually end up with Connacht dying. That's why I kept him way far away. We've now taken out all of Majarin's health, and he seems to be frozen there. Let's bring everyone else up. Well, guess we'll just hack him to death a little bit to finish him off? No, Archer, stop. No, that doesn't seem to work out. Wait, I know how we can be a dick to Majarin. Here we go. We'll just put a couple satchels around him. Okay, you do, yeah. Okay. Well, now we can defeat Majarin. Here we go. Okay, well, considering the thing I just talked about with the head, should be always what you have to do. Connacht, will you do the honors? Actually, no. Connacht attacks his foes from the front, face to face. There's Majarin's head. Still has quite a history coming up.
Majarin's body lay in the cold snow as Connacht held aloft the traitor's severed, yet still screaming head.
And that's it. The last major victory for the good guys. Now Connacht was truly going to be the greatest hero of all time. But of course Connacht's not always going to be a hero, so let's end the game with a look into the future that's going to be.
The leveler Majarin had been exposed and ultimately defeated. During the final battle, the axe of Connacht had severed the head of Majarin. Yet through some dark sorcery, the head refused to die, continuing to spit vulgar curses at Connacht. Majarin's dream powers had ended, but not his life. Mordred, who had aided them so much in the war, had in the end revealed himself as a traitor. Desiring the vast powers known only to the leveler, he had offered his soul in return for that knowledge. Connacht and Damas could not bring themselves to kill the traitor they had once counted as their close friend. Connacht spared him from death, but told him to flee and never to return. From now on, he would be known as the Deceiver. To ensure that the being known as Moagim would never again be resurrected, his body was incinerated. Those ashes were then mixed with sea salt and placed in a metal urn. That urn was then buried beneath the mountain of Kor, never again to see the light of day. Balal the Watcher had survived the war. Having fled from the pursuing Avatara, he was eventually hunted down and captured in a silver mine on the western side of the Cloud Spine. Believing a swift killing was too merciful for such a beast, the Watcher was imprisoned by a powerful spell, permanently sealing his body to the very rock of the mountain. No one can recall the fate of Majarin's living head. After a long period of mourning for their much-loved Emperor Leitrim, Connacht was crowned as the new emperor of the Cathbruig Empire. At his coronation, Emperor Connacht issued 3 commands. Firstly, the city of Lankerfan was to be renamed Mirthemni to honor the brave dwarfen smiths who had given their lives to save it. Secondly, for the honor of the Northmen of the 12 Duns who had fallen in battle, they were to be interred in the mausoleum of Clovis, the first emperor of the Cathbruig. And finally, the mountain pass where Emperor Leitrim fell to Moagim's blade was to be renamed the Stair of Grief. And with that, Emperor Connacht began the rebuilding of the great city of Mirthemni. It was the end of the Wind Age and the beginning of the Wolf Age. Many years after the close of the Wind Age, Emperor Connacht called Damas into the imperial chamber.
Damas, how run the armies of the Empire?
Very well, my Emperor. It has been a long time since last we spoke.
Too long, my friend. How fares Ravana?
She's busy teaching Finn how to fight.
He has his father's skill, I bet.
And his mother's temper.
You have a good family, Damas.
Thank you, my Emperor.
Damas, I have a quest for you.
A quest? That'll solve any boredom I've gained by training the troops.
The quest is a serious one, my friend. I bid you to gather the items of power left in the world. Items like the Tain, the Sunhammer, the Eblis Stones, and the Trabist's Mirror. Gather together all the items of power remaining in the hands of men and bring them here.
I shall bring them to you, my Emperor.
No, do not bring them to me. When you gather them, you are to hide them from me. Burn those that will burn, and bury those that will not. And never let me know where you have hidden them, never.
Yes, my Emperor. I will do as you wish. But answer me, why do you ask this? You could use these things for the benefit of the Cath Bruig. Why destroy them?
Ever since we met with the Shade Mazarin have I known the future. Not everything, mind you, but the major events. I knew that there was a traitor among us. I knew that I would become Emperor. But it is the future that concerns me.
How so?
The world, my friend, has a nature to it. A cycle of light and dark that controls the very destiny of mankind. We have surfaced from an age of darkness into a new age of light, but the world will not always be so. I know that the darkness will return, that I will return, and bring in the new age of darkness.
Preposterous! You cannot mean that!
If only it were a lie. But I cannot believe that it is. That is why I bid you to destroy the artifacts of power. When the darkness resurfaces, I do not want it to have access to those items of destruction. You will humor an old man, won't you?
Though I do not completely understand, I will do this for you.
I pray that you never do understand. You are a good general, Damas, and the closest of friends.
And you mine, my Emperor.
And with that, everything kind of falls into place to finish off the game. We now know why Lankerfin was renamed to Mirthemne. There's a cool little callback involving the Stair of Grief. Stair of Grief is probably the best mission in Myth 2, and it takes place obviously at the same place, and it's kind of cool to learn the history of that name. We now know why Balor didn't use any of the powerful artifacts that he knew of as Connacht, and why Soulblighter did. Why he knew where all of those artifacts were. We know why none of the Fallen Lords kind of liked the Watcher. They all used to be enemies. We know not why none of the Fallen Lords really liked the Deceiver, because, well, he was the Deceiver. He's a jerk. We also know why the Deceiver and the Watcher really, really hated each other. It's because they had that dream duel a few missions ago. Before I finish off this, I just want a quick shout out to Johnny Law. Thank you for your awesome Myth 1 LP that kind of paved the way for how I was doing this, and thanks to Corbeau for being my technical master whenever I needed to change the game files. So one last thing before we end the LP. Looks like there's supposed to be one more cutscene, at least with scrolling text. It's in the files, but not shown, so I shall read it for you. With the armies of Moagim destroyed, and the Mercridia and Trow defeated, peace flourished over the lands of man. Connacht proved himself to be a strong and just emperor. Reuniting the scattered remnants of the 12 Duns, he gave aid to the rebuilding of their once great nation. The dwarven kingdoms would eventually come to think of the empire of the Cath Bruig as brothers. Emperor Connacht began a dynasty that would last for hundreds of years. It is said that in Connacht's 100th year, he left the mighty city of Mirthemne alone and on foot. Eventually, he traveled to his beloved nation of Gower, and saw how his people had prospered. From there, legends say that Emperor Connacht disappeared into the unknown east, not to be seen again for 1,000 years.